In this particular climate of the pervasive complexity of information that the world is privy to at this moment in time, and because we all have a perspective, then there'll probably be many of you in disagreement with my last video, saying that we shouldn't just allow this to go on, we should campaign to change this, and if we don't do anything then nothing will change, and all this sort of thing. Well, each to their own. What those of you who know me and what I'm about will maybe realise that I just look at the world and try to discover that which it is. I don't want to project an ideology onto the whole world. Why would I do that? That's preposterous. That's entirely a selfish perspective, because there are many billions of people who wouldn't agree with my ideology. And so then what do I become? I become a tyrant trying to impose my ideology onto everybody else. And so we look at the world. I look at the world and I can see that there are a whole myriad of ideologies within the world. And I choose from certain ideologies, and that's what I've done all my life. I've travelled extensively around the world, living within an environment which suited my vision of ideology at any given time. And that's the beauty of the complexity of this world, isn't it? It isn't all the same. More so in the past, you had a diversity of culture, which is a marvellous thing to have all this diversity. And the difference in cultures, that gives the human being richness. If we want it all standardised and we want it all to be in line with a certain ideology which we project onto it, then don't you think that that will become boring? And so when I look at the world, I don't want to change it in any shape or form. I'm here having an experience, and I'm looking at it en masse, and I'm seeing what it has to offer me, and I'm choosing eclectically from that which suits any mood at any given time with me. And if I find that Portugal doesn't suit my mood anytime, then I'll up and leave. That's my prerogative. And so if we lend ourselves to looking at the world like this, then I think we could all find a greater level of happiness and contentment. After all, you see, because we are shards of consciousness, we have a portion of the God consciousness. We have the attributes of God. And so if we capitalize on that, then we can create our own world, because we have that ability to a degree. We can choose from around the world where we want to reside, what we want to engage with, whom we want to have an involvement with, partake in whatever rocks our boat, you see. But if we remain small-minded and we want the whole world to be in a utopian way, which we're projecting onto it, well, you're never going to find contentment, because that isn't a reality. The reality is, when you look at this world, this tiny blue dot in this cosmos, can't you find in your hearts the resignation of it is what it is, because maybe it knows a whole lot more than we do. And even if you say that, well, it isn't one thing that knows everything and has an agenda, well, I may beg to differ with you on that. But let's say then, it's a free world. And because it's a free world, it is what it is now because of that freedom of choice. That certain people could manipulate it into being what it is. And so if you look at nature, you look all around and you can say, well, I don't like venomous snakes because they can bite me and they can kill me. Well, it is what it is. Avoid those venomous snakes then, the best you can. If you don't like a certain climate, whether it's a political climate or it's an environmental climate, then we really do have the choice to choose whether we want to partake in the environment where this variety of vibration is prolific. For instance, I can't stand the English weather, and so I've spent many years in avoidance of that, and I go to other countries. And so if we stop trying to impose our ideology onto the world, we look around the world and we choose the variety of life that we want, then I think that's a better way to enjoy this existence. To go with the flow in a certain environment, because after all, we are sharing this body, and this body has limited power. Even though we have God consciousness and mentally we can create any illusion really that we want to about any given environment. For instance, I mean, you can live in a war zone and you can go, this is great. I have a certain invincibility about myself and I don't think that I'm going to get killed, and so it's exciting. I don't know, that's you know, it's maybe the wrong idea to put forward, but let's say then if you love a peaceful, tranquil environment, a small town in an obscure part of any country, where the people, they don't know about this stuff that's going on out in this crazy world. They're in another world, they're in their own world, they're in their own little utopia, and they're sharing amongst the people in their immediate vicinity, and they're accepting things predominantly for what they are. And so this is how I am looking at the world. As I've said, I don't want to change it. I don't want to campaign against anything. The last life I would want to live is that of a politician, spending all my years and energy and life force climbing up the proverbial ladder of ascension to power. Goodness me, these guys are missing the mark. In their estimation, the ideal world for them is the acquisition of personal power in the shape of goods and money. Well, we're all powerful, we've all got certain powers, and so let's look at the powers that we've got and go, okay, I do have a certain power that could drive me forever, incessantly, to accumulate paper energy and power, and so I can manipulate more and more people in my local vicinity. But if you don't want to do that, then you just observe everybody around you doing that and go, horses for courses, really. If they want to do that, okay. If they want to do that, okay. If somebody wants to impose certain restrictions upon me, then I look at them and I go, oh, that person's pretty powerful in this neck of the woods. And so I can't fight that person because that person's got too much energy, got too much power and jurisdiction over too many other people. I'm no match for that. So I look at what power I do have, and I have the power of selection, of choice. And so I may say, well, I don't want to be in the vicinity of that guy. or these people. And so if we don't want to be in the vicinity of surveillance cameras and rules and regulations and automated robots in the shape of police and all this sort of thing, then again we have a certain power to go, well, I'm going to make a choice about this, and I'm going to go somewhere where this isn't anything like as prolific. Around here you see the odd policeman. They're always in couples. They drive the car around and you see them just sitting in the car or chatting to people. You never see nothing going down. You never see anybody being arrested. You never see anybody being manipulated or anything like that. It's just a service they're providing for the community. They're there if you want help, and if you don't go robbing any stores or anything like that, then the chances are you're never going to come to a confrontational situation with them. And so, choices, people, that's what it's all about. That's what I'm saying. And so when I listen to people and they're going on about this and they're going on about that and they're going on about something else, I mean, for instance, if it's like fluoride in the water, well, don't drink the fucking water. Leave the country to one of the countries that doesn't do that. Yeah? Oh, they're putting these chemicals in the sky. Well, I mean, okay, they're putting chemicals in the sky, and so we're all going to be subject to them unless a select few have got a magical anecdote to it, and they've took this anecdote and so they'll never be affected, and so okay, they'll inherit the world then, when the other 7 billion people will perish. We're all going to perish together, and we're all going to go to the afterlife together. It's not going to be a lonely experience, is it? And so when you look at stuff like that, we're all on this globe together. And whatever fate has in mind for the human race, then the vast majority of us is going to be experiencing that fate together. And so isn't there any comfort in that? For instance, I mean, if there's a nuclear war, oh, there's a nuclear war, it's going to be so terrible. It's going to be terrible for about 2 seconds. And that's if the bomb lands, say like 10,000 miles away. You're going to have about 2 seconds to think how terrible it is. You know, I really can't get all agitated about nuclear war and this, that and the other, because we all die. If a nuclear bomb goes off in any given country, then first of all, the world is going to be in complete and utter turmoil. The machine is going to come to a standstill because all the countries are an integral part, feeding one another and being fed by one another. And so if one country goes out with a bomb and they send a bomb to another country, that's 2 countries, i.e. Russia and America, well, it's all over, isn't it? Why would anybody be afraid about that? If you've seen the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and you can see this flash of radiation which goes out in a second, vaporizes everybody within, goodness, I don't know how far, but they're gone. And if you so happen just to be on the outskirts of this flash of radiation where you're not vaporized, and you go, oh my God, they've all been vaporized. Well, okay, maybe you get to survive. Maybe you will suffer from the radiation at some stage because it's going to be contaminating the whole globe for a long, long time. Again, people, this is fear. You know, it's your choice whether you want to be afraid or not. And I've always chose not to. I can't see the point in it. When people are so afraid of being afflicted, having this thing traumatized and all the rest of it, well, the trauma comes from within, really. It comes from what level of acceptance you have of it, or what level of assimilating you can do. I mean, for instance, if like you're being bullied in school, then, I mean, if you're really afraid of this bully every time you see him, then that bully is going to have you in terror every single second of the day. But if you're not afraid, and when he does come and he bullies you, I don't know, once a week, once a month, once every few months, it's just a tiny portion of time where you feel a little bit agitated, or you may be suffering some pain from it. So don't let your whole lives be governed by the potential, you see? And so, what can I conclude with about this? I just think that this thing that's going on here is so incredibly complex and paradoxical. Never, ever, ever to be worked out. And I don't even think the so-called Illuminati or the masters, they're not all working together. They're working together in that they need each other for the world plan to feather each other's nests. And this gets back to my previous video about exchange. They're all exchanging with one another. This is why the whole of Europe all of a sudden overnight opened up to the influx of Muslims and any other creed or religion from the Middle East. They're all working together, every single country. Even if they didn't want 1.5 million refugees coming into the country, they accepted it because there's other benefits coming from somewhere to those who allowed it, you see. And so all these people, they're all feathering their own nests, and they're not always in agreement with everybody's agenda. They've all got their own particular agenda, but they have to make compromises here and there. And that's what's going on. There is no one agenda. If you look at the Zionists, if you look at the Jesuits, if you look at the Muslims, they've all got their agenda and their ideology. If you look at the Christians, they've got theirs. And further on with the varieties of the Buddhists, you know, another one. There's so many ideologies and agendas all over the world. Mostly, at this current moment in time, there's compromises always being made. And some people start to feel a certain affliction in a certain region, but then there's invariably a benefit. There's usually a secondary gain. It's a bit like when lots of people have got some sort of psychological issue. Many people will hold on dearly to the trauma that they've suffered in the past, because they've learned to transmute that suffering into something else which is of benefit to them. For instance, I mean, if somebody just has an illness like they've got a bad back, and it's kind of like, wow, I've got a bad back, I can't work no more, and you know, I'm really limited, and it's a real bummer. And then by the time they've had this back for a few months, it's kind of like, well, what's the secondary gain? The secondary gain is I don't have to work again for the rest of my life. I was bored initially, but now I found something to occupy my time. Also, her indoors, she knows I've got a bad back. I can't do the gardening anymore. I can't wash the car anymore. Ooh, I struggle to make lunch. And so I sit in my chair and I'm reading my book, or I'm watching TV. That's the secondary gain, you see. And so if we allow our minds to look at secondary and third gains, then we can open up avenues to other varieties of life. And so, okay, we've got lots of suppressive rules and regulations being implemented implemented at this moment in time? Well, look at it broadly. How can you use any of that for your own advantage? How can you capitalise on any of that? And this is what I did in my early days. With the property boom and with the banking manipulation of almost forcing loans upon you and credit cards and all this, well, I'm like, I'll take them then. Yes, I'll take this loan and I'll take this credit card. Now use all your money to feather my nest and to build my little empire and this sort of thing. And so I think we can always look at the face of life. And my old man always used to say to me, whatever card or hand you've been given in life, turn it over to see what's on the other side. Just have a look what's on the other side, you see. Keep your options open. Don't just think that what's being presented to you is the world, because it isn't. The world can be pretty well anything that you want it to be. Go anywhere around the world. And I've always said when I've done my travelling that there's worlds within worlds. I've been in places so obscure on this world that are so diverse from where I grew up and the culture I was within. And when I was there, living this variety of life, I'm like, this is mad. My brothers and sisters and all my friends, I know pretty well exactly what they're doing. Driving down the same roads and the same cars, going to the same jobs, and the weekend they're doing the same shit. Ha ha ha! You know, a few laughs in the boozer. When I'm doing this remarkable stuff. And so it's kind of like, well, they don't know that. Most of them not interested. But if you are interested, and if you broaden your mind, and then you find yourself standing on top of the Great Pyramid of Giza, or climbing the pyramids and ruins of the Incas and the Mayans, and trekking through tropical jungles and living in African countries and all this sort of thing, looking how they do it, that's living. And so I don't have any resentment to anything that's going on. We've all got choices, people. Choices whether you want to get involved in it, whether you want to look at it, whether you want to think about it, whether you want to engage with it, whether you want to be in the vicinity of it, all this sort of stuff. And so, what am I saying then, by way of conclusion? Be a man. Be a woman. Be a human being. And look at yourself and assess your choices and assess what you value in this life and assess your level of comfort. Most people, they have an awareness of all that great stuff that's going on out in the big wide world, but they'll go, it's a bit risky. What if it don't all go great and I lose my nest egg here and this, that and the other? I think I'll just stay where I am. And so your choice has made your compromise, and you've compromised yourself. You can't blame anybody or anything for the compromises that you impose upon yourself. If you can get a job in France, England or America, you can get a job anywhere in the world, really. The only people that wouldn't really come into this sort of assessment that I'm speaking about now is people living in third world countries whereby they don't even have a passport. They're never ever going to accumulate any money, and so they can't look too far flung, can they? They can just look around their local vicinity and go, oh, what am I going to make of this? A load of fucking dust and a few bushes and a couple of goats. Damn! You know, God, you didn't give me much of a hand here. What am I going to do with it? Well, you know, I've often speculated how I would have been, the essence of me, had I been born in an African village with the dust blowing around and the goats bleating. what would my life have been? I would still be this thing, this essence, exactly the same. I'd still be this body if I was born from the same parents. But my outlook on life would be completely different. And maybe my options would be completely different too. And so I'm just theorising, I'm just speculating, I'm just philosophising, I'm just toying around with freedom of thought, you see, because I'm not contained by any dogma that only allows me to see this. And the sort of dogma that I hold fast to my narrow beliefs because somebody said this and, well, if they said it, oh, it must be true. And if they said it, oh, I'm going to believe what they think because I don't want to be out there on my own. I don't want them to ostracise me. And so I've got my opinion, which isn't my opinion, of course. And then if you say something to me, well, that's not in compliance with my opinion, I'm not your friend anymore. How many times have we seen it in this YouTube thing, at this moment in time? People unfriending people on Facebook because they don't agree with these few lines that they've said. What can you say? I don't get involved in any of that. I'm just looking at this thing from a relatively unbiased perspective, and I'm going, wow. It's a blast, really. If you look at it like that, where you're not affected by it, you're not controlled by it, it's a fucking blast. You're on the world, you're on a spaceship flying around a star, in a gazillion stars in a galaxy, with trillions of galaxies out there somewhere. Just think about it like that. What, little me is a part of all this. Oh, fuck me. I'm going to think about this. I'm going to think about that. I'm going to learn about this. I'm going to learn about that. I'm going to experience this. I'm going to experience that. I'm going to do it. Whatever it has given me the facility to do, I'm going to capitalise on that. And I'm going to be a human being. What are you gonna be?